Hey, let's go and chat. One of our most favored topics on Ron Siegel Radio is credit repair. And many of you hear me talking about creditsanitizer.com. Well, it's because it's an easy URL that I understand. And where does it take you? To Blue Water Credit. It's our friends at Blue Water Credit. We've been working with them for a lot of years. And Sarah Perkins is with us today, helping to educate us. We don't have any specific advice for you other than go to creditsanitizer.com, get registered, and that'll take you right over to Blue Water Credit's site. But the bottom line is if you want to learn about credit, Sarah Perkins, welcome.
Hello. Good morning, Ron.
Glad to have you with us. So let's talk about credit repair. And I want to get one of the dumb fallacies out of the way. You know, these folks that go on and talk about the idea of just dispute everything and say it's not mine. Is that really the right way of doing things?
No, I mean, obviously it sounds super simple. Just go on Credit Karma, file a dispute, say it's not mine, the balance is wrong. And I would say most of the time you're not going to get those kind of items deleted unless it actually is in fact wrong.
So how do you get where you're going? And I know that there's all, decades worth of experience, but I tell people, if you go to the bureaus or if you go to Credit Karma, don't ever hit that dumb dispute button because it's kind of like trying to use Twitter to correct your report. Am I missing something there?
No, you're absolutely right. There is a method in the way that you need to dispute these accounts to actually have results where they are going to get removed or updated into a positive status. So when you start doing those things on your own, you're probably going to end up causing more damage than good.
That's worth the weight in gold right there. You cause more damage just by using these sites that are they're made for the bureaus to. Well, I'm going to throw my opinion in here. I don't want to cloud it as being Sarah's, but the bureau's idea is to keep your scores low. The lower your scores are, the more they can sell your data for, because that's all they really want to do is sell your data anyway. I mean, we fight Apple, we fight Facebook, we fight all these sites for selling data. Yet, you've got these bureaus that are selling your data. But at least if they sell the data, you want to have it correct. Am I right there, Sarah?
Yeah, you definitely want to have it correct.
So what are you looking at? I mean, what is it when somebody does an audit with Blue Water Credit? What's my experience going to be like there?
So what you're going to get is an experienced case manager that's going to take a look at all three bureaus. They're looking for inaccurate information, incomplete information, and erroneous information. So they have an eye for those type of items in the way that they're reported on the bureau that maybe the normal consumer might not necessarily see. And we know with the bureaus that they cannot delete information unless it is deemed inaccurate, incomplete, or erroneous. And they know the behaviors of different creditors and the way that they report items. And so we just have a leg up in the way that things are reported and the right way to dispute them.
So it's kind of like the same idea as, I use the same analogy all the time. I'm old, so I don't remember too many of them. That, I need 2 knee replacements. I could probably go online and find out how to do that myself. I probably won't have a good result. And it's kind of the same thing with what you're talking about. When you go through these things, what you're doing really isn't rocket science. It's your experience that is the rocket science. Is that kind of a good analogy?
I think that's a great analogy. Yeah, we just have the education, we have the experience, we know the trends going on with the credit bureau. So we just have more tools in our pocket and know more about how to get those accounts successfully removed from your credit that are damaging your score.
Well, I like that. That's something new I hadn't heard before with the trends that are going on. What does that mean?
So just different ways that things are being reported or changes in the way that things can be reported, like with medical collections. That was a big one this year where paid medical collections should be automatically removed. And now they just changed it to now where if it's $500 or less, those items are supposed to be removed. And maybe if you don't stay up on the news and know that those things are not supposed to be on there, we know how to dispute those things because of those changes that have been enacted.
How long does something like that take to get those items off of a report?
It really depends. We have tools that can remove items as quickly as same day. Otherwise, it can take sometimes up to 35 days. So when we send a dispute to the credit bureaus, they are allotted an amount of time to respond to the disputes that we send. Sometimes they're quicker, and sometimes they use up the whole 35 days that they're allotted to make a response to our disputes. And then from there, if it's not removed, then we look at the reason why they didn't remove it. And then make a new game plan on how to dispute it to hopefully get it removed on the second round of disputes and so on.
Interesting. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about goals. What are the goals of what we're trying to achieve, and how might we be able to get there? Somebody that might be at a 678 FICO score who needs to get to a 680 to save money. We're going to talk about if there's some opportunity there that you can share with someone on something along those lines. Hey, let's continue our conversation. We've got Sarah Perkins, Blue Water Credit, is with us today, educating us on some of the things that are out there going on in the world of credit repair. And I don't know whether the right term is credit repair, or that's the industry term, and that's what people are looking at. But I think it's more of credit correction, more than credit repair, isn't it? Isn't that kind of right?
Yeah,
Sarah?
we refer to it more as credit restoration. So
Restoration. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So, you mentioned earlier that, some things can take same day up to 35 days to get corrected. Is part of the process or benefit just getting everything corrected on a report, or is it try and meet a specific goal that somebody has or why they're doing this?
Well, we know that a credit score is made up of a whole bunch of different components. The biggest one is payment history or derogatory items. So those are the things that we're going to work on at Blue Water Credit. But we also know the second biggest component has to do with credit utilization. So there's some things that we will advise that our clients while they're in the program of things that they can do to bump up their score while we are working on the items. So there are some things that can be a little bit faster as far as getting your score up.
So then I guess it sounds almost like it's a multifaceted approach.
Yes, absolutely. So while you're working with us, we're educating you on your credit report, your credit history, and what is going to improve your credit profile. So you're getting an overall picture of, what is going on with your credit so we can give you the best possible score in the shortest amount of time.
So I get a lot of people calling and wanting to know, the first thing when we get somebody calling us and they say, well, I've got an 825 score. And then they say 825 FICO, and our question is, okay, where did you find that at? And they come back and they say, well, that's what Credit Karma says.
Yeah.
Is that a FICO score?
No. So with Credit Karma, that's Vantage. So there's two main brands of credit scores out there, which is going to be FICO and Vantage. So FICO is used in probably 90% of lending decisions, and then Vantage is going to be used more educational purpose. So that's what you're getting with Credit Karma. But even within FICO, so you might think you're getting a FICO score from maybe a bank or credit monitoring system, but it might not be the version of score that a lender is going to necessarily look at. So I think within FICO itself, there's like 21 different versions.
Wow. So how do I know what one that I need to really be, pay most attention to?
Well, there's a couple ways. So if you're working with a lender, sometimes they have an ability to do a soft pull, which isn't going to damage your credit by hitting you with an inquiry. But maybe you're not ready to work with a lender and you're just curious as to what your profile looks like. One of the best places to go is going to be myfico.com. There you can get a report, all three bureaus, and they're going to give you a score for all their different versions out there. So the version that we're concerned with in lending for mortgage lending is going to be 5, 4, and 2 based on if it's Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion. So that's a good place to start if you're just wondering what a lender may be looking at if they were to pull your credit.
I love myfico.com. So I pay for that. I've got I don't even know if they still offer it, but I have a family plan. So I actually can monitor what my wife's score is doing and what mine is doing. And kind of probably like what you guys do, Sarah, because you guys see so many reports, but I actually will, I got the right word, I think, is manipulate my score. So I'll let some of my utilizations go up to see what that does. I'll let some go down. One of the big questions that I get all the time, and it baffles me, and I think I understand it. So when we're talking about lending, the only question that ever comes up is, what's your rate? And I find that because most people don't know any other questions to ask. So they ask, what's your rate? But when it comes to credit repair, credit issues, the vast majority of the people are just saying, well, I don't want to have you run my credit because it's going to hurt my score. Is it going to hurt my score in a material way?
Inquiries is probably one of the smallest determinations of a credit score. I think one inquiry is going to maybe move you 1 to 5 points, and a maximum 20 points that it can bring your score down. And there's always the window of what we call rate shopping. So if you're, talking to different lenders, you have a 30-day window to have them pull your credit, and it only count as one inquiry. I mean, if you're on the borderline between two tiers of credit scores, it can be something that might throw you off, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a small percentage of your credit score.
That's, and then there's a lot of people that don't understand that part of it. Now, if I go to my FICO, is that going to give me an inquiry every time that I look at my score there?
No, so that's considered a soft inquiry. And so anytime you pull your own credit, or maybe you go through a background with an employer, or maybe it's with an established creditor that you already have, and they're just taking a look at your credit to maybe extend a new offer of credit or maybe increase a credit line. Those type of inquiries have no bearing on your score. It's only when you go to actually apply for credit, like a loan, a car, a credit card. Those are the hard inquiries that are going to have an effect on your score.
Okay. So the other one that comes up every once in a while is, I had somebody the other day that we spoke to, and their FICO score was like 640, 650. And, they had no derogatories. They had no credit cards. They had no mortgage. Why would their score be that low if they have, nothing bad going on?
Well, it could be because they have nothing going on. So, I mean, with credit, it is somewhat of a game. FICO wants to see open active cards, anywhere from 1 to 5 cards, credit cards open, along with like an installment loan, like a car loan or a student loan, and ideally a mortgage on there. So if you think you're being smart and going all cash and paying everything off and then not using your credit, they don't know if you're a credit risk anymore. So you need to be actively using your credit, but using it in a way that's still responsible, that your score is going to go up. So it might be nearly just the fact that they just aren't utilizing their credit.
Not used. Okay. So once again, another plug, which Sarah didn't even know this one, but if you go to rsrccpayment.com, rsrccpayment.com, kind of did a video on that one, a show segment talking about some of these. And I want to talk more about the plan that I recommend and see if the expert says that we might be onto something here. Continue our conversation. Sarah Perkins is with us. Blue Water Credit. They are the experts. They are the go-to company. When I have questions, guess who I call? And I've been doing this for a long time. I've looked at, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of credit reports in my career. They probably do that every month, but that's a whole different story. But that's where you get the great information. When you hear us talk about creditsanitizer.com, that's going in there and pushing you right over to our friends over at Blue Water Credit, because they are the experts. So I guess we should start off. Got a couple of tricks, tips, something like that for us, Sarah?
Yeah. So one thing that I've been talking about lately is I'll hear people say, well, I pay my credit cards off each month. I have to use it for work, but I pay it off down to zero balance. Why is my utilization staying high? So a little trick is paying them early. If you take a look at your credit card statement and the date that it comes out, that is typically the balance and the day that they're going to report those balances to the credit bureau. So if you're paying it after that date, unfortunately, the balance that's showing on your credit report is going to be the balance before you paid it off. So go on there maybe a week early after looking at when that statement date is due and paying them early so the utilization actually reflects something under 10%.
You know something? You said that in like 2 minutes, and it took me 8 to go through it on rsrccpayment.com. I learned it from Blue Water Credit, but go to rsrccpayment.com. Now, the other one that I talk about in that video there at rsrccpayment.com is the idea. You mentioned this a little earlier, Sarah. You made a comment about keeping things not having dead credit cards or having credit going. I made a comment in there that I've got a phone bill. I've got several phone bills, but I have a Verizon bill, and I know roughly what it's going to be every month. So I have that being charged to one of my credit cards, and like 2 days later, I have a payment going from my bank account to the credit card company. And my assumption is that's going to keep that card active and a low utilization. Am I making an ass out of myself, or am I accurate with that assumption?
No, you're very accurate. That's something I'll often tell clients as well that are scared to use their credit cards, but know that they need to. Put something like your Netflix or your cell phone bill or something that's a reoccurring charge onto a credit card. So you are keeping activity on there, because unfortunately, if there's zero activity for 6 months or longer, you can actually end up losing your credit score altogether. And they can also close your account, which you don't want, because we know that average length of time that you have your credit cards open is also another factor in your score. So as older accounts get closed, that's going to really diminish the length of time that you have open credit.
I never thought of Netflix. I've always talked about credit cards and utilities, but I guess Netflix is almost like a utility anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Top mistakes that you see.
Going along the lines of, you said, making an automatic payment coming out of your bank account to pay for, whatever the bill is, and not checking that auto pay. Some people will set it for a certain dollar amount, thinking that they're paying the minimum due or maybe just over the minimum due. And then they go and charge something extra on there. And then also all of a sudden the minimum due is something larger than the amount you already have set up. And it could be a difference of $1. You're paying $1 less than the minimum due. And next thing you know, you have a 30-day late. Or you have a credit card that you don't use, but it gets hit with that annual fee and you don't have it set up on auto pay and you're not checking the statements. We see that happen so many times where that $69, annual fee hits their card. They're not opening the statements because they're like, I'm not using the card. It's not set up on auto pay. And next thing you know, you're in collections for a $69 bill.
So in the video that I did, or the segment that I did on that we cut out for the rsrccpayment.com, I put in there, set the minimum payment as an auto pay, $50, $100, $200, whatever your number is, and go in and make the payment like you said, you taught us earlier, about right before the statement closing date. So you end up making 2 payments a month. Does that cause a problem, or is that a benefit?
No, that's definitely going to be a benefit. So, and maybe it's easier to break up the payments twice a month. You just want to make sure you're getting that minimum amount that is due by the due date.
Good information. So who's going to be a good candidate for going into a credit restoration system?
So we, again, are dealing with derogatory items. So we are working with clients that have late payments, collection accounts, charge-off accounts, even something like a bankruptcy on their credit report. So basically anything that's negatively reporting on their credit, those are the items that we're going to work on with somebody in our program.
Now, when you talk about collections, a lot of times you hear, well, it's an old collection, 2, 3, 4 years old. Should I pay that, or is there something you can do to negotiate that, or How do we, is there a right way, wrong way to deal with something like that?
So we have to look at the overall picture. We have to look at, again, how old is that collections? A lot of companies out there will say, don't pay it, we'll dispute it and have it removed. But it's under the statute of limitations. So in California, a creditor has 4 years to sue you. And so just because something is removed from your credit report does not mean that you are not financially obligated to pay that debt. And so we'll see clients that all of a sudden are getting served with court paperwork. So that's one thing to consider. We know that we can possibly negotiate a debt down and get a deletion. That's my specialty. I've been doing it for 20 years. So I really have a good idea of who will settle for what and who will give a deletion along with that settlement. Where if you go and try to do it yourself and it's paid already, it makes it a little bit harder for us to get that account off. But we do have about a 40 to 50% deletion rate with items such as collections.
That's some good information right there, because one of the things you commented on is having that experience. So if I call, and I never call a bureau and want to try and negotiate these things, they're going to say we don't do it. It's impossible. Whereas someone like yourself who's been doing it, I can't believe 20 years. You must have started at 2, Sarah. I don't know. But doing this for 20 years, they're not going to pull the wool over your eyes so easily.
Yeah, I come with the experience. I actually worked in the collection world first. So I know all the different tactics out there that they use. I know the lingo that they try to, talk and scare people into paying things. And sometimes you'll be put into paying for something that you shouldn't pay. And then all of a sudden you're restarting that clock and having something report longer on your credit. So again, we're going to look at the overall picture. We're going to let you know what to pay. We're not in the business of having you spend all your money and settle, everything on there. We're going to work with you with what's best for your situation and what your goals are.
Beautiful information. We appreciate you sharing with us. Appreciate you coming on. If you want to meet Sarah or her team, give me a call at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Be more than happy to put you in touch with our friends at Blue Water Credit. They've been a partner with us at Ron Siegel Radio for a lot of years, and we wouldn't have that partnership if it wasn't successful and honorable and a great resource for our listeners. So make sure you take advantage of this relationship and go over there and check with them. Again, you go to creditsanitizer.com. It's going to put you right over to them as well if you don't remember Blue Water Credit.